So Antwain St. Fleur being missing. I tried to, when it comes to updates, there's no updates or anything on him. What is the situation? What is going on even with law enforcement on the end of their own end? Him being young, there being no updates, not too many videos are around. His flyers are up, right? But even that lacks in itself, as in there should be more flyers around on him. He's one of these individuals out here that you say, okay, he's missing, but no one really knows that he's missing because it's not enough out here to show that he's missing, right? I'm going to see him as a child because of my age, 40, going on 40, right? I'm going to see him as more so as a child, right? Because him being younger than me, right? And I'm going to ask that where are the rest? Where is everybody else? When people like to blame and say, well, the people that run the corporations are, responsible because they don't look for missing children, or this race of people is responsible, or that group of people is responsible. But everybody's not looking, because I had to scrape almost at the bottom, almost someplace, to try to find out more information on even him being missing at his age, and yet there's nothing to be found. So what is going on? Like, subscribe, ID in the Discovery Channel. Yes, ID in the Discovery Channel. The links are provided below. Get that Discovery Go app as well as an ID Go app. You might want to get those two things, combine them, make them into one, and I'm a Discovery influencer. That's indeed a fact. So Antwain, he went missing from Shirley, New York, the date of June 19th, 2020. The 19th of this year just passed. So he's been missing for precisely a year, right? It's questionable on if he's still in the area or if he traveled over to Brooklyn. And as I stated before, there's no updates. There's not a lot of information on him. So he's just out there, right? You're just a missing person out there. No one's really looking for you. No one's really searching around. No one is really providing, say, updates, that sort of thing. That's where it gets scary, because that's how missing persons, in a sense, never get found. So there should be less blame when people like to come to me and say certain things to me. Well, there's a reason why missing children, or missing persons, more so missing children, why they're missing. Yeah, because people like you are not searching for them. So don't tell me it's sex trafficking. How I'm told, well, it's sex trafficking going on with them. Well, when was the last time you looked for a missing person, missing child? Because to show that there's not enough out here on even him is to say, well, where do we get started? The more people get involved and the more people question, it tends to be less blame, because more information is provided enough for us to look around and search and see. The more people get involved on missing persons and missing children's cases, the more people use their brain. It takes more people to find these people, because each person, each individual thinks differently. They analyze differently, and they pick apart information differently. So somebody could go knock on the person's door. Well, let me go knock on their door to find out. That's some information. Somebody else might walk up and down the street to trail the places of where he might have been, as in where he was known to be. Somebody else might get involved in asking his friends, his family and all the rest, as in it's going to take multiple people to get involved on missing persons, and not just one or two people, including law enforcement questioning. Because it'll be 80 years from now, and then you say, well, he's still missing. And then everybody's blaming the system. Oh, let's blame the system. No, it's not the system's fault. It's the people's fault. Why would you blame a system when you didn't even get involved to ask, or go knock on a door of somebody that lived in the neighborhood, or go to Brooklyn and find out? That's how missing persons and missing children, in fact, come home. Because, see, law enforcement, when I hear, well, law enforcement is at fault, law enforcement can't be completely at fault. Remember, they're involved with missing persons cases. They're doing the searching as well. But it's the people that's not doing the searching. So when I say, let me try to see where even he could be, there's not even anything to go on. He could be over in Brooklyn. That's the only thing. That could he have been a runaway child, right? Could someone have, say, murdered him and then stated that he could be over in Brooklyn? It's things like that. Could someone have been involved in this young child's world and life and say had something to do with his death or something if he's not a runaway, right? Could they have been involved in his death and then say he traveled over to Brooklyn? He traveled over to Brooklyn. It's questionable if he's still in the area or if he traveled over to Brooklyn. Because if it ever came out of his mouth that he was going back and forth to Brooklyn, or his friends knew, as to say, well, what would be the reason for him in Brooklyn? Why would someone his age be over in Brooklyn? There's crime in Brooklyn, right? There's activities that go on in Brooklyn. Maybe Brooklyn was more desirable to him. Him being in Brooklyn, maybe he knew some people there, right? But you still would want to ask too, did someone have something to do with him, say, possibly dying? And then them covering, saying that he's over in Brooklyn or possibly went over to Brooklyn. It's things like that. As in, you're just not going to just say, well, this happened, that happened, then everybody else not question what happened. Because anything could have been with this story as well. Somebody could have played a part in that, and could be covering something. Because for them to know, once again, for them to know it was possible for him to go to Brooklyn, and is to say, well, that's to say he could have had a history in Brooklyn. And what did it involve? You know, young people are known to travel, and yet when it comes out their mouth to family or friends that they go to Brooklyn, I mean, remember, people do have friends, don't they? For someone young as him, his age, and he's a male, right? He could have been involved in sex trafficking. He might not have been, right? Being trafficked or something. I would think of a gay male. Yes, being someone becoming a victim of sex trafficking, right? Straight males could too, but I would see more so gay males being victim of that sort of thing. But once again, let's go back to his friendships. If he has friends or had friends before his situation of his disappearance occurred, right? It's to say usually somebody young like that will keep in contact with their friends. Because see, males oftentimes, you know, females sometimes can be more social than males, they say. But not completely, right? Not all the time. Some males are more talkative than females, right? Go to any barber shop and you find out. That's the joke, but it's funny, right? But it's true. So that's where I would stand questioning, okay, so if he left, did he have any friends from the place in which he left? And could he possibly have had friends in Brooklyn? And if any of his friends before he left knew of this or knew of that, what I mentioned. Because there's a connecting of the dots. To go from here is to end up there. Leaving here to go to Brooklyn. And while I'm here, before I get to Brooklyn, I have friends here before I get to Brooklyn. So I possibly mention to my friends here that I'm going to Brooklyn. Unless I'm a runaway and I don't want nobody to know that I'm leaving. Some people do that. I'm just young and I'm going to leave. Even grown people, I'm going to leave and I'm not going to come back and I'm not going to tell anybody. But I'm thinking someone his age would have mentioned that sort of thing. Yeah. Because it's cool to be in Brooklyn. Brooklyn has been known to many young people to be a cool spot, right? It has in the past. Even rappers from the 90s, a lot of rappers, Talib Kweli, there's a lot of rappers even in the past in the 90s who considered Brooklyn to be cool. That's where they were born and raised, right? So Brooklyn has been known to be one of those hangout spots. And yet for this young individual, once again, did at any point he tell any of his friends back home that he was going to be in Brooklyn, and for what reason and what purpose? Because see, to have be young like that and have friends is that possibly have them come visit you. Oh, you gonna be in Brooklyn? We know Brooklyn can be cool from time to time depending on what's going on. Even Brooklyn has been known to have house parties back in the 90s and all the rest. I don't know about presently or currently, right? Consider the 5 boroughs and all the rest, right? But yeah, because somebody his age, I'm thinking, would have wanted to go along with him to Brooklyn, or go hang and kick it with him in Brooklyn or something. There's something missing out of this story, and I don't know what it is. That's why I question if a murder could have occurred in them saying that he went to Brooklyn or something, right? Possibly could have went to Brooklyn. Because see, if I'm going to, people his age are usually into, shoes, clothes. They might be into shoes and clothes and stuff like that, right? He may or may not have been. And I know Brooklyn will be one of those spots. Remember, I mentioned rappers and stuff like that. Him being a male could possibly have been into rappers, right? And so with that, you're going to even question more further, going deeper in depth into his friendships pertaining to what they were into themselves, as in their culture, or what they were into, or cultures they got into, or in between, right? Because that would even pinpoint to even him where he could be. What type of friends did he have around him? What were their interests? Because if his friends had more of a Brooklyn mindset, culture and all the rest, you could say, well, maybe that's why he went to Brooklyn. If that sort of thing happened, right? Possible runaway, right? Did he prefer friends in Brooklyn? Because see, to know you're in New York is to hop on the train to get to places. The easiest way to get around New York itself is the train, right? Or several trains, right? So if you have a preference, or your friends have a preference of this or that, right? And Brooklyn just happens to be the location, then that's maybe that's where he is, right? Some people do have a preference for certain particular types of people with certain mindsets to be over in those locations, or go over to those locations in place of staying where they're at home. I like Brooklyn's culture more than I like being here where I'm at. So let me go over there and not tell anybody, right? But then how are you surviving? That's another thing. For his age, for his survival, that's to say he will possibly have to, more than likely, if he's not going to work a 9 to 5, because the best way to run into FBI or police knowing that you're a missing person is to apply for a job. That sort of thing gets ran in a system when they search for somebody like him, where there's little information. Okay, he has to survive. He's possibly in Brooklyn. Once he applies for a job or anything else, remember, social security number comes up, job application, all this stuff comes up through the system enough for FBI to go over to see where he's at a job. So it shows that he must not have applied for a job. He more than likely didn't get hired by a job. So that removes that out. Because in order to get a job, they have to run you by social security number and all the rest. That's going to come up to FBI that, okay, he applied for a job. He's no longer considered a missing person. Now we have to go where he is to bring him back home. So it shows once again he didn't apply for a job. So something else is more going on with this story. How else is he able to make money? There's only 2 ways somebody his age is able to make money. It's either him applying for a job, or it's either him out in the streets selling drugs or something. It's one or the two, as in you need money to survive. Could he have went to Brooklyn or somewhere to possibly sell drugs or something to make money? Young people do all type of things these days. That's not accusing him of anything. It's questioning so that he can come home. Remember, he's missing. So I had to question and ask. So to sell drugs is to not be caught, because people that sell drugs try to hide out from law enforcement. That's their position. Selling drugs get you caught, go to jail, and all the rest, right? Going to jail, you go to jail, that's worse off than being a missing person. And yet sometimes it's not completely, because to be in jail is to be alive, versus some missing persons that go missing and then is either found dead or not found at all, right? Some situations can be worse than others. Some, in cases like this, no situation is better than the next unless you're coming home or being brought home. I hope that makes sense. To go missing is to say, well, let's hope that he's not dead. Let's hope that he's found. And so it will be you'd rather a person be out in the streets possibly doing activity that they shouldn't be doing to survive, and not be a missing young child, missing children, gone missing and dead. Does that make sense? How you would say, well, maybe he's out here, maybe he sells drugs or something, maybe he's doing something in the streets to stay alive, because how else is he eating? Everyone has to eat to survive, unless he's hanging with some buddies and they provide him with food, unless he's hanging with groups or whoever in order for them to provide him with something to eat. How is he wearing clothes? Because I'm sure he's not wearing the same clothes he wore when he went missing. All that has to be analyzed and questioned. That's how you make sense of everything, as in what could have happened to him. Because money does play a part in this in some way. Getting money to survive. He needs clothes. He's not going to wear the same clothes he wore on the day he went missing. Remember, that was a whole year ago that he went missing. He's not wearing the same clothes he had on a year ago. He needs food. So if he went to Brooklyn, why did he go there? Could he have went there because he felt if he could do something out in the streets? There's no way he's working a job. So if he can do something out in the streets, he could provide for himself. And maybe he sensed more better than where he came from back home in comparison to Brooklyn. It's something about this story. That's why a missing persons case like this would take all day to question. Analyzing and trying to see what is the situation with this one. Because to not have enough information to go on even him is to start coming up with things that could connect the dots. You're not coming up with things or making up anything. You're reading into him and reading into his friendships and reading into his home life, and you're reading into Brooklyn to connect all the dots to try to pinpoint what could have occurred for him, as in why did he even leave if he did from the beginning. If he was murdered by somebody in family or friends or something like that, why did that sort of situation take place? It's all a connecting of the dots. So we're on investigationdiscovery.com. The ID logo stands in the far left corner. Live now, Diabolical. New episodes. Web of Lies. Season 7, episode 9. Unlocked episodes. Because that's what I do. I question all around until something comes out or falls out to try to make sense of, okay, well, that don't seem right. That doesn't seem right. That right there doesn't seem right. Let's go back to the beginning to see. ID Go Original Series. Recommended for you. Shouts out to Lieutenant Joe Kenda as well as Paula. To receive a newsletter from Investigation Discovery is to type your email address in and click next, and you would in fact receive that sort of thing. So dear viewers, let me know what you think about the video, what you think about the situation with this young individual, as in what could have occurred, and may you enjoy your day, and I'll in fact enjoy mine, and I'm gone for now. 1.